Welcome to Animation Hustle, the place where we dive into the funny and untold stories behind your favorite animated movies and TV shows. Be sure to subscribe and follow the Discord because today we're going to be deep diving into some of the craziest decisions animation executives have made. Now, as you probably know, working in animation isn't just art, it's a business. So a lot of times, animation professionals are having to deal with business people who aren't necessarily artists while making their cartoons. This happens all the time in TV shows and movies, and usually the relationship is typically pretty fine. But sometimes these executives can make absolutely hilariously boneheaded decisions that makes me wonder if they even understand what a good idea is. So I put together some of my favorite shorts that show just how chaotic it can be working with animation executives. A lot of them are funny, but the last one is a little shady. So let me know in the comments what you think of it, and let's jump right into it. Apparently, this Disney animator upset his director by doing something unheard of, making a cartoon that was too cartoony. This animator's sassy response to a director's note was hilarious and low-key legendary. So let's go back. Old school Disney animators were the best of the best. Walt was like Nick Fury and assembled a team of rock star animators. If you saw these dudes, you knew they were about to drop a banger. From Snow White to Pinocchio, Cinderella, and Jungle Book, these animators are a big part of why classic Disney movies are so good. So this guy is Ward Kimball. He was kind of the funny character specialist and was super creative. He was known for having tons of new crazy ideas, but one time he went too far. Do you remember this song from the Three Caballeros? So Kimball wanted to spice up the animation by having the characters break the laws of reality. They disappeared, teleported across screen, cartoon stuff. But the director didn't like it. He wanted the scene changed because it wasn't logical. Ward's response was great.
The director saw the pencil test as, you can't do that, you have to make sense. And I said, look, who cares? That gives it its flavor, its craziness.
The cartooniness added to the fun of the scene, so they kept it in and the song became iconic. But the story gets even crazier from there. Years later, Chris Sanders, the director of Lilo & Stitch, said that specific scene is what inspired him to want to be an animator.
Watching The Wonderful World of Disney, I'm pretty sure, and they showed the Three Caballeros. There was one sequence from that movie, and that was the sequence, the moment that I really decided I want to try to do this. And that's a little bit that Ward Kimball did. And it's the song, the Three Caballeros song. And it was it was so fun. It was just, and it took advantage of animation, like all the strengths of animation, things come and go, and it's quick and it's ingenious, and I was absolutely thrilled. I still remember how I felt when that finished. My heart was beating fast.
Crazy. That's just one cool story to remind you to not be afraid to stand up for yourself and your artistic vision. Some people would have just accepted the director's note, but Ward Kimball believed in what he was doing. If he hadn't have boldly defended his work, we wouldn't have had his iconic scene, but maybe also wouldn't have had classic movies like Lilo & Stitch, How to Train Your Dragons, and The Croods. Nickelodeon executives almost ruined SpongeBob before it even aired when they demanded the creator make one massive change to the show.
They said, we want you to put SpongeBob. No, I'm not gonna do that. I was willing to walk.
So this is the legendary story of how he totally ignored them and went on to create the biggest show of all time. So this is Steven Hillenburg, the dude that created SpongeBob. At the time of making SpongeBob, all of the popular shows were kind of the same. So he decided to do the opposite.
And everybody was doing buddy shows. I thought, I can't do a buddy show. I gotta do something about one character.
But his decision to do things differently made explaining the show to Nickelodeon really hard. But once he made the pilot episode, everyone started to understand the show better, which sounds great, but actually caused even more problems. The executives wanted to change it because they realized SpongeBob didn't fit the mold, but Hillenburg refused to change anything.
I'm not gonna change the entire context of the show. My idea is that it's this kid that's an adult. There was talk about, we want you to put SpongeBob in school and have parents. I said, well, what if he goes to boating school? That added an aspect to the show. You do have to say, this is it, that is not it.
Do you remember that scene in Coraline when we meet her dad for the first time? Well, Hollywood executives hated it, and here's why. So let's go back. So take a look at when Coraline is talking to her dad. He's not really paying attention, so she grabs the door and does this. It's a quick little funny scene, but it caused a lot of problems behind the scenes. So Coraline was a hard movie to make. The director, Henry Selick, is a stop-motion animation legend. He wanted to do something completely different, and the studios did not like it.
It was considered too scary for kids, not scary enough for older teens and adults.
However, studios had real problems with moments like the door scene because they thought it was boring.
Executives are scared. They say, make it go faster.
Most animated films for kids are loud and frantic. But with Coraline, they chose to take time and let scenes breathe for a very important reason.
But we have our slower moments. There's time for ideas to sink in.
When Coraline is hanging on the door and the door is just going squeak, and it allows your brain to go, oh my God, that is what it's like to be a child. And if you don't allow there to be pace that's slower, you'll miss that entirely.
It shows that it's not a formulaic film.
This Cartoon Network executive gave the most pointless note, and the show creator responded in the most hilarious way. So back in the day, Billy and Mandy was one of my favorite cartoons. It was hilarious, but also had this dark vibe to it. Now, despite being the show with literal death as the main character, one executive had an unexpected problem with the character design. As she looked at this, the one thing that stood out to her was Billy's nose. For some reason, she didn't like how big it was. So the creator of the show, Maxwell Adams, had to draw Billy almost 20 different times with 20 different nose sizes. And then they got a bunch of kids together for a focus group, and the kids got to pick what nose they liked the best. And of course, all the kids chose the original nose size. Even still, the executive demanded they make Billy's nose 2 sizes smaller than what the kids chose. So the creator got a little petty. To spite the executive, Adams actually made the nose 1 size bigger than the original. This Dreamworks animator totally roasted the company. It's hilarious, but low-key, she kinda has a point. This is Kathy Alturi, a successful art director and production designer in animation. When Dreamworks first started, she was one of the first employees. But something happened in the early days of the company that always bothered her. Do you notice anything weird about this? It's the logo. Turns out, when she first saw it, she hated it.
When the studio was formed, they called me in because I'm a color expert, and they said, what do you think? And I said, that is, in my opinion, one of the ugliest logos ever designed. To me, just that logo says you're going to be making kids' films. I would recommend all blue or all white. I said, no, this is exactly what Steven Spielberg wants. So, my apologies for the logo. I had nothing to do with it. I tried.
Hakuna Matata. I don't know how you can make a song out of that.
Okay, we got to write a new song, and Roger came into the meeting, and they said, what's this song going to be about? And Roger and I said, we want to make the song about eating bugs. And they said, that's a terrible idea. We then had a big meeting, and Roger came in and said, there's this great expression that we picked up when we went to Africa. It's Hakuna Matata. And I remember Tim Rice said, Hakuna Matata. What a wonderful phrase. No, he didn't say that. He didn't say that.
Hakuna Matata? I don't know how you can make a song out of that.
But then by the end of the meeting, he actually started to really like it. I remember, and he said, this could be like Bibbidi Bobbidi Boo. So he wrote this song, Hakuna Matata, and then we got the demo back from Elton. So we got the cassette tape, and we listened to it, and there was this, like, endless verses getting into the song. It was really not a great intro. And so we were sort of trying to figure out what to do, and Roger and I sort of hit on the idea that maybe we would start with them reciting dialogue. Timon would say, Hakuna Matata, what a wonderful phrase. Hakuna Matata ain't no passing craze. It means no worries. We came up with that idea, and we pitched it to the guy who was the music supervisor, Chris Montan. And after we were done, he said, you can't start a song on the chorus. And I said, well, the Beatles did it. Can't buy me love. And he went, oh, okay.
Hollywood executives tried to steal this guy's idea. This is the legendary story of how one tiny action saved an animator's career. So this guy is Brad Bird. He's the dude that directed this, and this, and this, and this, and this. Do you remember The Iron Giant? It was his first movie, and the story of how he got the gig is pretty crazy. Back in the day, Warner Brothers called him in to present his version of The Iron Giant, and Brad absolutely shocked all the executives. You see, The Iron Giant is based on a book, but Bird poured his soul into creating a new version of the characters and story. And when he revealed his idea, it was so different that everyone was stunned, but he continued his story anyway. Halfway through, Brad saw the assistants taking notes, and he knew he was slowly winning everyone over. Now, the entire room was excited, but this is where things get interesting. So the studio loved his idea and made a deal with him to make the movie. It wasn't until later that Bird discovered the studio had gone behind his back and paid 2 other writers to make scripts based on the notes the assistants took in the meeting. They even wanted to give one of those writers credit on the movie. It's crazy. If you look at the credits now, Brad's the only writer. So what happened?
One of them almost got screen credit, but I was smart enough to write it down and register it with the Writers Guild before I gave the pitch.